Well, I think last time I had a question prepared, and now I've had second thoughts, and I come up with something that I think is still comes up from time to time. So I thought, why not get back to some basics
Yes.
Of prospects. You've heard this. Prospects that disappear.
Okay.
And sometimes, did you do everything right? Could you have done things differently? What's the likelihood, if you did almost everything right, what did you miss, in your opinion, Ari? Or, I mean, there may be times where obviously people are just not forthcoming, right? I mean, they lie to you. In other words, you ask fair questions and they say yes, 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 and maybe they've had a change of heart, what have you. But I think it's worth nailing down from my point of view, and I'm going to try to be specific. What is it that I can do to be precise and convey that I'm the go-to expert, I'm the man, let's see if there's a fit, and here's what I need to know from you to decide if we can go to the next level, to sort of convey, and it's all good either way. But let's be clear with each other, let's respect each other's time. And so why don't we review that, Ari? And all for the reason that I still happens once in a while, not as much, where people seem gung-ho and then they're gone.
Look, I think the core reason why you may be having potential prospects slip through your fingers, even though you feel like it should be a wonderful fit together.
Right.
There's this chemistry. It's like,
yes.
This feels so right.
Yeah.
And they're excited, you're excited. And most likely the reason why they're not proceeding is because somewhere earlier on in that conversation, you didn't go deep enough down what I call the iceberg. And the iceberg really is the process that takes someone down to really peel the onion back around their problem and to really amplify the issue with them, to help them understand the gravity of it and either the losses or the impact of not solving it. And it's very possible that you're going down a few levels down and you're saying to yourself, perfect, I can help this guy. He's totally qualified. He fits my ideal person. I'm going to move this guy forward. It's possible you are moving them forward too early on in your process and they're not quite yet owning the gravity of the issue. And that's the real key, is that subtle moment, because they have to own the problem. You have to ask this question, which is this a priority for you to address once and for all? Or are you happy to live with the risk longer term, unresolved, and I'm okay either way?
I think that's perfectly said. Live with the risk longer term.
Or address it once and for all. And here's the key. You say, I'm okay either way. Because you have to be detached from the outcome. It's their responsibility to make the decision to solve it, not you. So even though you know you can help them and you're passionate, I know you care about people and your customers, you can't overlay that to them prematurely until they say to you, yes, this is something I have to address once and for all, because I know the risk of this is too large to keep going with this. Let's do this. So and then you want somebody.
Okay, that question, Ari, if I may ask, that comes once you've gone down the iceberg.
Yes, once you've unpacked the issue, you've asked them the questions about the risks and the impact of the situation, and they understand now how serious it is, because in most cases, your prospects and ideal clients won't be vulnerable with you up front and tell you the truth of where they're at, because they don't trust you yet. So you have to be the first person to make them feel comfortable and build what I call a moment of vulnerability, where they fully understand the gravity of their issue. It's like a doctor and a patient, right? It's when the doctor says, I think the x-ray is telling us here you have a real problem, more than you thought you did. And you're like, oh, really? Because we often don't want to go that deep. So, and let me tell you, the end of your call with someone shouldn't be exciting. It should be kind of like, gulp, I guess I'm going to deal with this. Anyway, so that's my advice to you, is to make sure you're going down the iceberg to the bottom, and then that question.
Well, the other thing is, okay, so here's a good question for you, Ari. Is there a clue that you get from the client saying, okay, now I've gone deep enough? That's a good question, right? It's like, how do you gauge that? Because what I was thinking when you said that originally was, well, I'm sold, so let's move on. But the client is not there yet. So I guess
exactly. It's like two ships in the night crossing each other, because we already know we can help them and you can solve their problem, but they're not ready yet to owning it enough to ask for help.
What's the clue? What's the tip off, Ari?
The clue is when they say to you, how can you help me? Or how do you work?
Okay, what do you suggest? What do you suggest?
What do you suggest? Where should we go from here? Because what'll happen is you'll jump in too early by accident and say, oh, great, I can help you with that. I've got the perfect plan to solve that problem, because we care about people. We want to help them, and we can't, it's hard to hold back when we know they got the problem, but you've got to wait until they own it. It's almost like a therapist and a patient. If the patient doesn't own their own problem from the beginning of the therapy, they're the worst patients to have. The same concept here.
You're so right. It's even better when you talk about an alcoholic. You say, well, I got to tell him, he should go to rehab. But if until he decides, you're wasting your time. So that's
exactly.
cool. So go down the iceberg, and then that question, which is the real question, because that's another mistake, Ari. It's another mistake, because now they understand the problem, but for some reason you're assuming, okay, so we're doing it, right?
Exactly.
Right? Of course we're doing it. You understand. Like you're in trouble here. You need to do something. Yeah, I do, but not now.
That's what I call making assumptions prematurely.
And I had someone like that just recently, Ari, if you'll allow me. I said, okay, so he understands. He said, thank you so much. I never looked at it that way. He says, can you call me in the spring? Because right now I'm doing renovations on my house. I went, oh my God. And so thankfully I was able to put it in perspective for him.
Awesome. Look, we got to pull more people in the show, but
all right.
It's been great to see you. Great question.
I miss you, Ari. So I like to, you know what I'm saying.
Come back next month to the show again.
I will. All right. Thanks again.